Request everyone to please be seated, and I promise you there'll be plenty of opportunity to discuss the many things that we have lined up for you later this evening as well. So let's get started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the 6th SBI Banking and Economics Conclave 2019. Over the last many years, the SBI Conclave has created a niche for itself as a hotbed of ideas by the biggest newsmakers and leaders of change, as well as a platform for innovative thought. So first, here's a quick look at the biggest moments from the last 5 years.
Every achievement, every win, every success is a journey. Before we pride ourselves in where we are today, let's take a look back at the perseverance and the commitment it took to get us here. Six years ago, it started as a single idea, the vision to make India a strong economy through the banking channels. This visionary journey began with State Bank of India's first Banking and Economics Conclave in 2014. It was the time the nation saw distinguished industrialists, regulators, policymakers, academicians, and professionals share their insights on thought-provoking topics, all with one mission: to drive India's growth momentum. 2014 addressed Indian banking in the emerging environment in the presence of eminent personalities and industry leaders. After the first year's stupendous success, in 2015, we were honored to have the then Honorable Finance Minister of India, late Shri Arun Jaitley, as our guest speaker and share his views on India's growth story. The 2016 edition of our conclave deliberated upon the theme of laying the foundation for India's growth. Once again, we had the privilege of hosting union ministers and various industry leaders as our speakers and panelists. In 2017, SBI Conclave scaled new heights with Nobel laureate and eminent economist Professor Paul Krugman delivering the keynote address to the august gathering. SBI's fifth Banking and Economics Conclave was a bigger success as the future of corporate banking in India was addressed. Eminent speakers from across various sectors shared their thoughts with us. In 5 years, SBI successfully brought alive a small idea and nurtured it into an event that is now most awaited by the entire nation. As we enter the 6th SBI Banking and Economics Conclave, we pledge to let our knowledge lead the way into building a $5 trillion economy. Presenting the theme for the 6th SBI Banking and Economics Conclave.
So that was a brief glimpse of the last 5 years. Thank you so much. And at CNBC TV 18, it's our absolute honor to be associated with this event. Well, the last few months have been witness to some landmark events. We've seen the overwhelming return of the Modi government. We've seen the appointment of a woman finance minister. We've lived through the liquidity crisis, the global trade wars, the slowdown, and the subsequent active engagement by the government. Truly, you can say that the last year has seen it all. So our attempt at the 6th SBI Banking and Economic Conclave 2019 will be to distill the very important learnings of this very eventful year into 2 days of power-packed dialogues, debates, and discussions which can then lay the foundation for the next round of game-changing ideas. So over these 2 days, the conclave hopes to tackle a range of issues from the role of and regulations of a knowledge economy to the vision of digital payments, as well as the role of the services sector in getting to a $5 trillion economy. But first, let me invite Mr. Rajneesh Kumar, Chairman of the State Bank of India, for a welcome address.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start my welcome speech, I would like this opportunity to remember and pay tribute to late Shri Arun Jaitley ji. I remember that in the 5th Banking Conclave last year, he addressed us through VC from New York. And this was one of his most reassuring speech for the bankers who were in the grip of fear, I can say. And his words were very reassuring. And immediately after that, we saw amendment in the Prevention of Corruption Act. So this is a small video around this. Video.
A close call to the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, a crisis manager, a cricket enthusiast, a sublime speaker who could captivate the audiences and even opposition leaders, a top performer who reimagined the art of credible, creative and constructive politics, is gone too soon. The man we speak of is none other than the indispensable all-rounder, Mr. Arun Jaitley, who has left a vacuum that's difficult to fill. Senior BJP leader Arun Jaitley, who was a lawyer par excellence, a politician who transitioned from student politics to becoming one of the most powerful figures in India. Mr. Arun Jaitley's 45-year-long career is colored by many achievements. In this long and successful journey, we were honored to have him inaugurate SBI's 2nd Banking and Economics Conclave. In fact, Mr. Arun Jaitley shared our vision to make India into a strong economic power and thus continue to be associated with the SBI Conclave year after year. Today, let's pay tribute to a man who dedicated his whole life to this nation. And though he may be no more, his work, his efforts, his words and wisdom will continue to live on.
Our anchor, she has already, in fact, set the background for this 6th conclave. And first of all, my hearty welcome to all the dignitaries, bankers, financial people from financial world who have made it convenient to attend this conclave, despite the fact that it has been, if I may say, in the shadow of rains in Mumbai. There has been a disruption, and today everybody needs a lot of courage and gather courage to be on the streets of the Bombay and come here. So really I am thankful to you for this. This conclave also got delayed because of the fact that in May there were elections. And the thinking was that we can have a conclave only after the elections are done and the new government is in, and that is what has happened, the unprecedented majority which NDA got. So that has given rise to a lot of hopes. And at the same time, some of the recent events where there is a slowdown in the economy, and on the other hand, we are dreaming of becoming a $5 trillion economy. So when we were deliberating that what should be the theme of the conclave, and then because the rapid changes which are happening in the way we live, we transact business, and the rapid digitization which is happening globally and is happening in India, we decided on this theme, that role of knowledge economy, if we have to achieve $5 trillion economic target. And today we have many veterans of the industry who have deep inside knowledge of this subject, and they will be debating and looking at this subject from all angles, whether it is regulatory, whether it is growth, and what I am expecting also, that the environment which as of now is little bit gloomy, but I still believe, and I have said it so many times, that India continues to be an aspirational country. Demographics are our favor. The changes which are happening across the globe, India is not far behind as far as the new economy, new world order which is emerging. There are headwinds on account of so-called trade wars between USA and China. And when these type of shifts happen, there is definitely no country in today's world can remain unimpacted. And the mood also swings very quickly. In 91, 92, it was all about globalization. And today, in just, I would say, 30 years, it is all about nationalism, protectionism. So it's now a different discourse and a different world altogether. So I won't take much of your time. Once again, a hearty welcome to all of you. And believe me that the kind of panel we have gathered in this, it is going to be a very engaging and a very fruitful discussion. And by tomorrow evening, I am hoping that at the end of this conclave, we will at least have some idea that how much role the digitization is going to play in our dream of becoming a 5 trillion economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, since the SBI Conclave has become a boiling pot of ideas, it's pertinent that we set the context, and doing that is none other than a leader of change himself. Please put your hands together for Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Chairman of Manipal Global Education Services.
Folks, thank you very much for inviting me. I think in this gloom and doom that we see today with the markets going nowhere, it's important to focus on the future. So having this topic, the knowledge economy in India's path to 5 trillion, I believe is very important. Now let's examine what is this knowledge economy. We've seen the Industrial Revolution change the world. Till 1825, India, China made up 45% of world GDP. Then came Great Britain with the Industrial Revolution, and that was built on physical capital. Agrarian and industrial societies were built on physical capital, and because of the advent of the machine age, Europe dominated the world. But now the knowledge economies are built on knowledge or information to create goods and services. There's an emphasis on human capital development, there's emphasis on specialized skills, and is driven by innovation, intellectual property, research and development. So we're seeing new engines of growth, we're seeing rapid change. And across this, we see the advent of information technology and the network coming into impact, which is dramatically accelerating innovation and bringing about rapid change. AI is going to dominate the world in the future because AI means machines will have intelligence. Will machines require human beings in future is a moot point, because machines will have a lot of intelligence to work by themselves, and that is a big change that will change human civilization. What are the products of the knowledge economy? Growth is now dominated by knowledge-driven fields like pharma, semiconductor, chips, life sciences, defense, material sciences, and design, etc. But these have been happening for some time. So what is new? What is new is the network. What is new is IT, cloud computing, which has dramatically lowered costs, the mobile, which has empowered billions of people around the world, and the internet. But why the internet? Because the internet has dramatically changed the world. The Industrial Revolution was built upon creation of a global supply chain to connect producers and consumers across the world. If you're not part of the global supply chain, then you are shut out of the system. And in the global supply chain took away a great part of the value created. But the internet provides a platform to everybody who comes on the platform, synchronously and unsynchronously, to interact, to do business, to get entertainment, to get education, communicate, to social media. And social media has given power to the individual. So anybody in the world with a smartphone and a cheap data plan can now communicate to anybody, spread messages, and this empowerment has unleashed new forces. You know that in India, media used to control us. Now media cannot control us because on social media, everybody has a voice. And that voice is accentuated by the power of social media because the network has come into being. And this will change the way we communicate and we do things. Look at what happened in Hong Kong and you'll understand the implication. But knowledge is now changing the world. How did it change the world? Because they had high value. Economies with larger service contribution are dominating global GDP. So manufacturing alone is not enough. Providing goods is not enough. Providing traditional services is not enough. R&D, accelerated application of new innovation, leveraging technology is important. And for most companies, intellectual property, processes, patented material, even trade secrets have become much more valuable than the earlier way of dominating in assets. Look at this chart. You'll understand the change. The world has 7.6 billion people. 5.1 billion are unique mobile users. Now, they are on the internet. 4.4 billion are on the internet. Active social media users, 3.4 billion. So the genie is out of the bag. And you have to be part of this network to understand how value is being created. And then look at India. Now, India too is doing very well in this because we have 1.36 billion people. And mobile subscription, mobile connections are 1.2 billion, and we have 560 million people on the internet. 560 million people, possibly the second largest in the world after China. It's 2 times the United States. We come number 30 or 35 in world ranking, but Singapore has got 5 million people, and they may be having 4.5 million internet connections, but we have 560 million, and the power of this force coming into being is unbelievable. Now, why is it happening? It's backed by connectivity boom. The digital platform is strong, network effects has overtaken traditional products or service businesses. And the impact of the network means that every single person coming on gets the benefit of talking to people who have been there before. And the network impact dominates society right now. There has been a leap in data. Data generation has gone up. You can see the chart. Now, we don't know how to describe the quantum of data that is going up, a typical J curve going almost vertically. All of us have become pieces of data. Our persona are just a collection of data. Google knows what you do, where you go, how you think, and what you need. Google can use AI to make predictive analysis to find out what needs to be given to you. And when you go on Google and search, the search engine gives you information which they want you to see, not what you want to see. And they've dominated elections, as can be seen in Cambridge Analytica, what they did in various countries. And this means the power of the individual to think for themselves is gone. And those who control the data are going to control our minds. Our minds are not, our own, because we are all influenced by emotion, and emotion can be driven by what we see and what we hear. Now, this has created new threats to human civilization, and we require new rules to manage this in a big way. That's because data has proliferated in the last many years. Then, there's been access to data has improved unbelievably high. Because today, if you look at this data, India has 560 million users on the internet. Indians consume 11 GB of data per person. America consumes 2.85. America is behind India. America is only 2.85. India is 11 GB of data. And data costs you 100 rupees a month, unlimited data. In the United States, about $80. And this has changed the context. And then Indians see 67 minutes of video every day. 67 minutes of video. So we've got this whole new video coming up which will influence people, and now the access at a low cost will create exponential growth. What about, use of data to store? Price of data storage has crashed, 99%. We can't describe it because it is so large because of cloud computing. Now you can start a company with just $1,000. You don't need to set up a data center. You don't need huge amounts of infrastructure. You can pay as you use, and you can get unlimited data almost instantaneously. So you can create large corporations in a jiffy because the traditional impediments that came to you are all gone. Now, what about leaps in compute? Now, Moore's law is coming to an end. That means the silicon chip cannot anymore grow in terms of its capacity. So we're seeing quantum computing come into play, where there's going to be parallel processing on a massive scale, and this means 5x increase in computing power. If you have a 5x increase in computing power, it means you can simulate the birth of the universe. You can simulate the monsoon to an extremely good degree. You can simulate birth of a human being. You can simulate the growth of a cell. All mathematical problems which are beyond human beings because they took a lot of time can now be done. And this is unbelievable. Now, on top of that, we have what we call leap in algorithmic techniques. What are algorithmic techniques? Is a program written to take care of huge amounts of data to look at what could happen in the future. For example, facial recognition, visual recognition. China has created millions of cameras all over. So if you go in China to any place and they catch a small image of your face, they know exactly who you are, what you are, because the technology is fantastic. And China is giving the technology to a few of our neighbors, and we are creating a surveillance state all over. The United States, through Google Maps, knows exactly what is happening in all parts of the world. And they have access to all the maps, all the networks live on the data screen. What you see in the movies about tracking people is actually a reality. Voice recognition. Now, the algorithm can recognize people's voices. You can speak any language you want, but a voice can be recognized. Now, this is a great leap, and you are getting fidelity of 98, 99%. And why is it happening? Because there's a fast convergence of technology. Look at this chart. Earlier, it took a long time for somebody to use technology. And now, after 2010, see how convergence is coming together. Public cloud, AI, and other technologies are coming together. Self-driving cars are coming up. And then you're seeing improvements in life sciences, etc. And these smart machines using big data, analytics, visualization, etc., is creating new paradigms. Now, how do you cope with growth? Human beings need time to cope with growth. Now, this growth is so very rapid, it's almost vertical. So every 2 years, we are seeing new companies come up, new models come up, and value is being given because there is disruptive capital. Capital follows innovation. Capital puts money into innovation, sells others short. So you sell the traditional industry short, and you buy something else, and you make a lot of money. And this, I think, gives you a chart about the pace of growth. The airlines took 68 years to have 50 million users, and now Pokemon has taken 19 days. Twitter took 2 years. I think Geo took about maybe 1.5 quarters. And Facebook took 3 years. We don't know what's going to happen next, but the pace and acceleration of adoption has expanded. The early movers will now dominate. Look at this chart. 1917, US Steel, AT&T, Standard Oil with the largest companies. 67, IBM. IBM is dropped out. In 2017, 18 is Apple. And we're seeing companies like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft go beyond $1 trillion in value. $1 trillion in value? We don't even know how to count $1 trillion. And it's enormous. We don't know where they're going to go. And that this rapidity of change means capital is now driving acceleration. Today, there is $15 trillion of government bonds which are negative rates. Just 2 days back, I think Orange raised $750 million of 7-year bonds with a AAA rating at negative rates. So what is going to happen to the world? We don't know because capital is in surplus. The winners always look invulnerable till they don't. So you can see the changes. You had IBM, Intel, Microsoft, then AOL, then GAFA, that is Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet. The Facebook and some other company. Now you're seeing what is going to come next, and we don't know. Digitization is giving enormous benefits to people, and this is coming because Wherever there's digitization, we are bringing markets and consumers together. So in the consumer field, you're seeing a huge amount of benefits that come. We're seeing in e-commerce globally, we are seeing how Alibaba has dominated China. We're seeing how Amazon has dominated China. Now in the automotive, logistic, and power field, we're seeing these changes. And these benefits are going to be much more in future. Now, focus on digitization has given great growth in key sectors like mobile payments. All payments are on mobile. UPI has overtaken traditional payments. It's almost free, and you can do 900 million transactions a month. We don't know what is happening. Now, all banks are on, digital payments, but are banks making money? It's become free. They got to make money. They build the infrastructure, they're connecting, but all the payments are going to the banking system. It's not like a mobile wallet. In 30 seconds, the payment is done from any part of the world. This has never happened before. And in retail e-commerce, the transaction value is going up. Why is e-commerce going up? You have a platform, you have so many goods and services, there are millions of items, and they can be delivered from any part of the world because you don't need physical places to go to. Because at the back end, everything is the same. In the front end, it is all change. China has shown the way. We must learn from China. In the top 30 companies, China has got digital companies, China has got 10. Japan has got maybe 1, that is Recruit. India doesn't have anybody because the most valuable company is $22 billion, and that is Flipkart. And very soon, there are only 2 countries, China and America, who dominate. Why China? Because China has built it up over the last 10 years, and in the digital payment area, in the digitization world, China is ahead of the United States. China promised to spend $150 billion on AI by 2022, and America is now catching up, and that's one of the reasons there's a trade problem with China with America, because the Americans are now running scared what is going to happen. Digitization has kick-started a productivity revolution which can add $5 trillion to China's GDP by 2030. We have seen some of this data. Debt of non-financial companies are double. Corporate returns are come down because of maybe higher turnover, keener competition. And those who have adopted digitization are doing much better. By 2030, a new productivity model can create more wealth. So per capita income is going up for China. China is a model from which India has to learn, though India cannot shut its own economy. Now, the knowledge economy will rewrite India. And India is undergoing rapid change. Now, first, let's understand what is India. We have 1.37 billion people. Population is growing at 1.11%. So we don't have a population problem. There's no population explosion except in 1 or 2 states. Our fertility is 2.0. For us, population stability is 2.3, not 2.1, because we have higher IMR and MMR. But the whole of South India's fertility is down to 1.8. Today we met with Chief Minister Fadnavis and told him the number of young people in Maharashtra in 18 to 23 years is less today than it was in 2011. And the population pyramid has inverted for India. If you look at the Family Health Service 2013-15, the population has inverted. That means the lesser children born today than people who are 13 to 15 years old. And the population pyramid is inverting slowly for India. This is a dramatic development which we never anticipated could happen. India's GDP is $2.73 trillion. In PPP, we are the 3rd largest economy at $11.4 trillion. We should not forget this. If some country pushes us around, you must tell them, look at PPP, because PPP is real. Then, this is the data which most people don't look at. But in 1950 to 1980, India grew at 3.5%. K. and Raj call it the Hindu rate of growth. Population grew at 2.5%. 1980 to 1990, we grew at 5.5%. Population grew at 2.25%. After we opened up in 91, the animal spirits of the Indian took over. We were $275 billion in 1991. We reached $2.73 trillion in 2019. We have grown 8.6% a year, every year for 28 years. Show me one country which has grown at 8.6% a year in dollar terms every year for 28 years. Only China. No other country. This is huge growth. We should be proud of this growth. Except we don't talk about it. We moan and groan about so many things. Our share in world trade has gone up from 1% to 4%. Savings has gone up. Things have gone up, but we have a long way to go. The world is changing. This is an important slide. By 2025, we'll see the emerging markets come close to the OECD, and by 2028, the emerging markets will overtake the OECD in GDP. It last happened in 1825 when Europe overtook Asia to become the largest part of the world economy, and we're going to see this change. And this is the reason we are seeing change in global geopolitics. We're seeing change in the global financial architecture led by China. And this is the reason for the trade war between the United States and China. Because China is the new hegemon, China is a new great power, doesn't know how to handle its great power status, and all of the emerging countries are coming up. So there's going to be growth and demand in the emerging markets. There's going to be huge savings and capital in the OECD. We must make sure the capital from the OECD doesn't flow too much and own the emerging markets as a form of neo-colonization, as it happened with the East India Company. India and China, when we compare India, the only country we could compare is China, because we got a same kind of population. Population is growing at 0.35%. They live longer. They got a literacy rate of 96.4%. Our literacy is still 79%. And this is harming India. And real GDP growth is higher. China's PPP is 27.4 trillion. And they are the factory of the world, largest exporter, largest importer, largest foreign currency reserve, and largest debt. Most of it is internal. So debt has fueled this kind of a growth. And India, too, is coming up, hopefully will grow to the size in the next 10, 15 years without that kind of debt. We'll continue to have a young population by 2100. This is important. Last year in Japan, they had 945,000 babies being born, 1.3 million Japanese died. The population is now 124 million. It will shrink to 96 million by 2050 and 65 million by 2100. So our population is not going to shrink, but we are going to age, but we're still going to be the youngest country in the world. China may become older before it becomes richer. In the United States, by 2045, the Hispanics will be the largest community there, ethnic community, and the whites will be lower than the Hispanics. In the United Kingdom, they got a major problem in London. Germany's population is aging and shrinking. Scandinavia is shrinking. Russia's population has shrunk. All around the world, in the Western world, population is shrinking and aging. Japan is shrinking and aging. Korea is shrinking and aging. China is aging. India will be stable. Africa is growing up. And South America is aging. This demographic change is going to impact the world much more than anything that we see, because demographic change leads to a new kind of politics. Now look at India. Our biggest asset is the IT service industry. Sometimes people abuse them and say, why do not a Microsoft, why do not a Google? They forget many things, that United States has a Google and a Microsoft and no other country, not Japan, not Germany, not Europe. Now we export $137 billion of software. $137 billion equal to $200 billion at the street value, because we export a lesser value. The world makes $600 billion of software, 30% is done in India. Now, the world spends maybe $1 trillion, the balance are products, and then we have 4.5 million people employed. But if you look at the top 10 software service companies by market value in the world, 5 are Indian. If you look at the top 5, 3 are Indian. The most valuable software service company in the world is not IBM Global Services or IBM, but TCS. At $127 billion. There are 2 million people working in the top 10 in the world. 1.5 million are Indians. IBM employs 185,000 people in India. Accenture nearly 200,000 people in India. TCS employs 445,000 people in India. The United States has 6 million people in software. 1 million are Indians staying there. Out of 4.5 million people, 2 million work for American companies. Out of 8 million working for American companies, 3 million are Indians. Indians dominate that field, and we need to tell Uncle Trump that, we are still around, you can't kick us out. And in California, 30% of all startups have an Indian founder, and we have approximately 65% in cyber security. And in the education field, 35 to 40% of all PhDs in the STEM degrees are Asian, primarily Chinese and Indian. So we're dominating this field in the United States, but not in India, because we've driven away our best minds outside, because the education system is not able to cope up, and we are not able to invest adequately. Now, we are seeing the startups come up. India has about 40,000 startups. Every year, 5,000 come up. They created $140 billion of value. We have 33 unicorns. We have 25 Soonicorns who could become unicorns by 2020. Of course, Nimesh is not raising capital for them, because he's forgotten that they need money. Today, they employ 700,000 people, And by 2025, we'll have 100,000 startups employing 3.25 million people, and we are going to have 100 unicorns creating $500 billion of value. This is where this room should invest, because this is the future of this country. After we opened up in 91, we had the software service industry, we still own it. And then we had the pharma industry, we still own it. Then we had the telecom industry, after Jio, we own it. Then we had the infrastructure come up, the cronies took the banks somewhere, they're getting into trouble. Now in the digital world, our future is gone. Out of 34 unicorns, 18 are domiciled outside India. Out of the 25 unicorns, 16 are domiciled outside of India. Out of the $50 billion of capital that's coming from 2014, only $5 billion is Indian. Because for Indian corporates, risk-taking means taking risk with the bank's money. They don't put their own money to work. They put it into mutual funds or into money markets. They take risk with the bank's money. But we need more risk capital. Because if we don't put capital, our future is gone. Our future is going to be owned by outsiders, especially the Chinese, and we are going to become a digital colony. We are well on the way to become a digital colony. Look at this. $50 billion across 3,700 deals. They're in Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai. Mumbai has got a good startup community. Bangalore saw 43% of deal value. Startups raised $11 billion last year, and the year before, $13.7 billion. So money is coming in from overseas, from Masa, from SoftBank, from the Chinese, and from the Americans, not the Europeans, and very little from Indians. Now, there have been many things that have happened in India to make this digital adoption and to make sure that we have a knowledge economy. Data costs has shrunk, smartphone costs has shrunk, smartphone adoption has gone up, data consumption has gone up, and total digital transaction has gone up unbelievably high. And of course, SBI is leading the way, and SBI has possibly the largest share in the digital payment system and digital banking. Now, India's new business backbone is driven by Aadhaar, monthly UPI transaction, Jan Dhan accounts, ease of doing business, DBT. The DBT is a fantastic thing. About 7 lakh crores has gone in DBT payments for the last 5 years. About $20 billion, 1,50,000 crores has been saved, which is being robbed by people who are not entitled to it. And 40% increase in taxpayers. And we are seeing Indian mutual funds go up 3x in 5 years. Now, this is an interesting slide. These are all the unicorns. Baiju is the most valuable edtech company in the world. They raised $9 million at 20 million B 5 years ago. Now they're $5.6 billion. Their revenues have gone up from 50 million 3 years ago to $450 million this year. They're profitable, and they can easily raise money. And they got about 2.5 million subscribers paying 10,000 rupees a year. You can see Ola, Uber, you can see all these companies, and you can see here what has happened. 3,700 rounds of capital since 2014. What does the future look like? Alibaba uses data and intelligence to dominate. 95% of all written and spoken queries are handled by chatbots on its portal. Their smart routing reduces 30% of travel distances. Now you can see 50 million monthly active users, 175,000 transactions per second, and they got a huge amount of data about every consumer in China. This is what is real power. This is what is real power, which SBI should have, because SBI has got the largest market share. And they're using a supply chain, and the annual revenues have shot up from 2010 to 2017 to something like $150 billion. Now look at Baba doing in Alipay. This uses holistic user profiles to lend. They don't have a physical lending. Everything is electronic. They use data. They got an algorithm, and they use the algorithm and all data from the web to assess a client credit performance and to issue loans. And they monitor clients' cash flow and cut off in case of a fraud. And what China has done, which you can't do, is to create a portal where if you don't pay money, you are shut off of the digital world. You can't take a ticket, you can't rent a house, you can't go to a hotel because they got all the names. Of course, we can't do that, but that's an extreme case. But look at what Baba has done. Baba has become one of the most valuable banks in the world. And the balance sheet has shrunk up tremendously, consumer finance at an unprecedented scale. And look at this, Uber. Uber knows exactly where people are going, at what time, when, and what is the traffic condition all over. It leverages dry data to help government plan urban mobility, because they know what is happening everywhere. Thousands and millions of cars are going all the time, and they know where the traffic is, what it is, and this is the domination that you can have in a particular field. Spotify is a music portal. It uses machine learning to create weekly personalized playlist list. Depending upon the music that you want, it creates a playlist for you to say, these are the suggested music that you like automatically using AI. And you can see how the growth is coming up because people find it useful. Once you go to the portal, it sends you the music that you like. And all of us like certain things. We are pattern-oriented. We do things in a pattern. It is not unique all the time, and they know our patterns. And then Hon'ble. Hon'ble is another portal which allows integration of voice and conversational AI into any enterprise product. It is a technology by which voice and the machine talks to you. Very soon, we're going to have a machine teaching a child. A child will go to a portal, talk to the machine, do a problem. The machine will talk back and say, do this, do that, do this is a human voice. And we are going to have our own avatars in the virtual world. Is it going to happen? The technology is there. And then, implant chips. The new thing is that you implant a chip into your hand, and using that you can make a phone, you can access keys, you can make payments, check in, everything else. You don't require a smartphone, you have a chip in your hand. And very soon you may have a chip in your head, so you don't have to go to class. You don't have to do exams. You download all the data, download all the things, and you can have an antenna out here. Some people, cyborgs, have got antennas too. That's an extreme case, may not happen, but the drudgery of learning is going. And then designer babies. It's actually happening. It happened in China. By using CRISPR technology, you can edit the human gene, and you can create a designer babies. We don't know what is going to happen. Is it working? It's working. Can a baby come in a Petra dish? Maybe. They're able to create an embryo of a lamp in a Petra dish. Can the embryo grow in a Petra dish? Maybe. Then men will have no use. So we are seeing the babies being done. This is extreme. Now, this creates ethical questions. Deepak, we need to understand what to do and what not to do. So society has new problems about data usage, data privacy, data consolidation, use of technology, misuse of technology. Now, if you're able to rewire the brain so that human beings don't know what is right and wrong, and you can be controlled, then you can be a human robo. You can be destructive. Now, Indian companies are going along the path like Hotstar. Hotstar has 3 GB data consumption. More than 90% watch time is in mobile, and they become the hottest thing in this country across all parts of India in a short while. Now, there have been many initiatives to improve internet access. Jio has been a phenomena India has not seen, the world has not seen. In 9 quarters, 325 million subscribers, unlimited data at 100 rupees. They still make a little bit of money, and today they announced fiber to the house with a free TV. We don't know what's going to happen. $50 billion have been spent on creating this network. $50 billion. Thank God we have somebody who does that in India. Otherwise, all the data will be outside, will be controlled by China or by somebody from the UK. Now, on the internet, T-Series has become the largest, has the largest following, overtaking PDP. Savan has become one of the biggest music portals. Vasundhara Raje gave away 1 crore smartphones to older women. She had 40,000 young girls called digital Sakis before the election to go and tell this older woman how to operate the smartphone, because in the villages, if you buy a smartphone, the women don't get it. The men get it. She gave it to the women. Hopefully, they're still doing. Of course, the voting percentage went up, but it was inadequate. Oyo, you've seen Oyo, 575,000 rooms. Oyo has almost got an unlimited pot of money. They don't require bank lending. Now, there's a competition between Oyo to spend the money and make losses, and Masa to pour in more money. He's gone to about $11 billion already, and money is coming through his ears. We have never seen this kind of phenomenon, Deepak, where people are pouring money in the hope of creating something. We don't know whether it's going to work, but people are giving money. Ola has got 1 million drivers, 450,000 cars, new age platforms. Now they got a business, became the fastest unicorn in 12 months for electric vehicles. And they're not raising capital from India. They don't want our money. They're coming and pouring money here. Clean mobility. Now, there's a company called Yulu, which has created this map by machine learning in Bangalore. So they know exactly where people go, where they stop, where you have to park, and give the last mile. This is extraordinary technology. We've got Ather, which has come with a electric vehicle scooter, which has become a unicorn in just 5 years. They just make maybe 25,000 scooters this year, but they become a unicorn. People are giving them money. So, I want to end by saying India has got a robust foundation in the digital economy, in the knowledge economy. Innovative solutions are coming up because the Indians are innovative. We have enough techies to write all this. And what do we lack? We lack capital. The biggest problem of India is we got digital access. Our data costs are less. We are creating a lot of data. We are creating new knowledge assets. But we are not creating assets for the future because we don't have capital to go into R&D. And if we don't have capital into R&D, new programs, new assets are going to be created by the Americans or the Chinese. We'll be good engineers using it and creating our own companies, but will we dominate this field? Unless we get more capital, we'll not be able to dominate. India Stack is the greatest piece of public use software which has revolutionized banking in India, done by volunteers. But we need much more of that. For that, we need capital. So, the future is fluid and only limited by imagination. The knowledge economy will rewrite the fundamentals of the economy all around the world, including India. And this is the opportunity India should grab and dominate the world. Of course, there are 4 Indias. 300 million people in the 21st century, another 300 million in the 20th century, another about 300 million in the 19th century, and 300 million in the 18th century. We have to focus on the 300 million, make them more productive, remove the barriers for them to growing up, give them lots of capital, and they're going to create the wealth for the balance 900 million. And we need to have strategies, and that's why all the bankers in this room should lead India so we don't become a digital colony and we grow a knowledge economy to become a $5 trillion economy by 2025. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pai, thank you so much. So I request you to stay back for the panel. So a transition to a knowledge economy has been at the heart of India's vision, and complete transition will alter the set of rules that govern the decisions of business leaders. We've just heard a very, very engaging presentation. So let me invite the rest of our panel to please join Mr. Pai over here. We have Mr. Rajneesh Kumar, Chairman of SBI, Dr. Purendu Chatterjee, Chairman of the Haldia Petrochemicals, Mr. Dinanath Dubashi, MD and CEO of L&T Finance Holdings, Mr. Dilip Asbe, MD and CEO of NPCI, Mr. Mahendra Nerurkar, Director for New Initiatives and India Payments at Amazon, and Mr. Vivek Agarwal, Global Head for Enterprise Vertical Solutions and Portfolio Companies at Tech Mahindra. And moderating this very promising panel is CNBC TV 18's Managing Editor, Shireen Pan.
Thank you very much, Samira. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us here for what promises to be a very exciting conversation. I think Mr. Pai has set the context for the many issues, the opportunities, as well as the challenges that we face. If I had the opportunity, I would have placed people sitting on this panel a little differently, because if you go by the context that Mr. Pai had set, then Mr. Rajneesh Kumar, Mr. Purnendu Chatterjee, as well as Mr. Mahendra, probably, or actually Mr. Dinanath Dubash, they would probably fall under what Mr. Pai has called the old economy, the past, so to speak, whereas the other gentlemen on the panel are perhaps the future, if you go by what Mr. Pai articulated. So let me start by asking you, Mr. Kumar, the biggest problem to India's knowledge economy, as articulated by Mohandas Pai, is the lack of capital. I don't necessarily believe that, because I think to create an innovation and an IP-based economy, there's a lot more that needs to be done beyond just capital. But are you going to be investing on the future, or is it too much of a risk for somebody like you?
So this is a reality that the funding of the startups, it doesn't fit into the traditional lending models. In fact, in the State Bank of India, we set aside a certain amount of money, and that was done 3 years ago. But unfortunately, I've not been able to invest even a single rupee today. So I think this is a very thought-provoking discussion which is happening today. And the lending for, not lending, that's not the right word to use. The provision of capital is all coming through the venture capital or angel investors.
Sure.
These things don't fit into traditional lending method, but at some stage, all the banks, we need to provide or set aside a certain amount of money at least where we can invest, and that is something which has to be done in a manner where the scrutiny standards are different.
Okay.
Because
Scrutiny
only maybe 1
standards
out of 10 or 1 out of 20 or
will
1
succeed.
out of 100
Yes.
will succeed.
So you'll have a whole other NPA problem then.
This is not an NPA, but if 99 fail out of 100
Yeah.
and only 1 succeed,
Yeah.
then you can imagine the problem for the bankers.
No, absolutely. And which is why I'm saying that it is a legitimate concern that bankers like yourself have. So what is the way forward then? Because as Mr. Pai pointed out, it's the money coming in from China, it's money coming in from the US that will continue to dominate in this space. Domestic capital, even with all the regulatory changes that have happened, it hasn't really been unlocked to the potential that someone like him would like to see. So do you believe that there is a role for traditional banking in this space? They're not coming to you anyway today, but would you like to be relevant to them in the future?
So I think the only way is where we pool our resources and funds, put it in the hands of specialists who can do this job and contribute in that fund. Rather than I trying this in the State Bank of India and setting up set aside a certain amount of fund, and then my people, they are all governed by so many guidelines, rules and regulations. I don't think they will be able to take decision and invest in venture.
Then you'll have RBI coming in and saying external benchmarks, and
many.
you'll have
I'm
to
not
align
singling out
yourself,
anybody.
align yourselves to
But
that.
but there is a process.
No, there is a process and there is
we
a
are
problem.
There is a government ownership. There are certain guidelines, rules,
Yeah.
which you cannot avoid. So I think the best way is that all the public sector banks at least, private they don't have any such limitations, that we pool our resources and create a fund and leave it to the professionals.
Okay, look, he's got legitimate problems, he's got legitimate concerns. So can there really be a role for traditional banking to play a part in the startup story?
Shirin,
Yeah.
1% of his balance sheet is enough. 1% of his balance sheet. And that 1% is not going to miss.
He's not going to miss.
Because he's going to make 10%. He's going to make 10
You
times
want to ask
that.
you want to ask his shareholders that
No,
1% of his
he's
balance
going
sheet
to
is not going to
no,
miss?
No, he's going to make 10 times that in 5-6 years. But only 1%. Now the banks have lent 97 lakh crores. 1% is 97,000 crores. Okay? Even if you put 20,000 crores into funds managed by somebody else, it's not going to hit their balance sheet. The key thing is, are you committed? Now, the deposits that come from that could be very large. When you get $10, $11 billion, that is 60, 70,000 crores, you'll have 50, 60,000 crores deposits coming in. The business that you can do, the transformation they can do, the value that they can do.
Yeah.
Those 34 unicorns have created about $80 billion of value.
Yeah.
Now, if he gets only 1% the value, 5% the value, he's made his money.
Well, maybe he's interested, maybe he wants to, but it's not, I would imagine that it's not his call alone to take. It'll have to be taken in Delhi, and that'll be the decision that'll have to be taken there. But let me move on, and let me come to you, Mr. Chatterjee, and let's talk about this old economy, new economy transition that we're talking about. How do you see this transition for somebody like yourself playing out? It's, as I pointed out, it's not about digitization alone. It gets sort of, when you talk about the knowledge economy, the obvious sort of assumption is that it's about digitization. It's not just about digitization. So what is a company like yours doing to ensure that you make the transition?
So I'm in a very interesting position, and at one level I see existential threat
Yeah.
to our core business. Sooner or later, all the old economies are going to be either you embrace digital or you die. And if you look at it in petrochemicals, which I am known for, is all our technology comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay? We have not developed any technology here. Now, in order to deal with the petrochemical business problem,
Yeah.
we actually embrace digital wholeheartedly. So you have a mother cracker, we are actually creating a digital twin
Right.
and using digital twin to create advantageous operational all the way from procurement to selling, and we want to see
Yeah.
whether you can even manage customers' network or not.
Okay.
So that's one side.
And that's really on the productivity gains side. But I want to pick up on the larger issue that you mentioned, that all of the technology that you're using, you haven't developed. You're getting it from somewhere else. And that brings me back to the larger issue that if India actually wants to be a knowledge economy, a superpower in the knowledge space, then you have to value IP. You have to be innovative. I mean, those are things that you've got to spend your money as well as your resources on. So what's the problem? Why do you have to go outside, look outside for technology? And why can't we see it being developed here?
So in materials technology, no matter what you do, people don't spend $2, $3, $4 billion of capital expenditure unless they see it working somewhere else. So this is an area where the Chinese have copied heavily the European and American technologies and built their own. That game is over because America has woken up for IP threat. So that's not going to happen. So we are going to rely on polymer technologies forever on either American companies, Europeans are almost gone. So either you buy the American companies,
Okay.
or you phase forward. So I'll tell you what we are doing. So we tried to buy a company at one time.
Okay.
And sometimes one thing good about America is technology companies become undervalued and you can go and buy them. So that's one strategy. Second strategy, we looked at it. The basic issue is we really don't have a true R&D innovation culture. And so I have created, since most of my companies are private companies, I can do this. We are creating 20 research centers over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
We're allocating about 20% of our EBITDA without compromising our credit rating.
Okay.
And the first 3 of them that are starting out, one is in quantum computing and high performance computing. Okay. Second is in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And actually we call it Institute for Advancing Intelligence.
Right.
The third is translational neuroscience,
Okay.
which is dealing with some of the issues of what is synthetic biology, CRISPR. And all.
So finally, you're making those investments to try and fortify the future, and
Hopefully, in
hopefully,
15 years,
hopefully,
these
yes.
things will generate
And
through a network our own IP.
And you wouldn't face the existential crisis that you're today worried about. Mr. Dubash, let me ask you, the same question that I just put to the panel on my left. What will it take for India to actually encourage and create a culture where R&D, IP innovation is not just nurtured, but it's also valued? I mean, very often, every time the budget comes around, the conversation veers towards give us a tax up and R&D investment will pick up. And a lot of sectors have actually not even availed of those tax ups, even when they've been granted by the government, which is the government's point of view. So what will it take for us to become an IP and an innovation-driven economy, not a jugaad economy?
Absolutely. I have a little different view. I agree with you that government regulators have a role, most definitely a very important role. Like Mr. Kumar was saying that if 99 out of 100 fail, then will the regulator come hard or the government come hard on the bank? They have a role. But more importantly, each company and each private company has a role. And the role is, and it's happening. So why I said a different view is let us just see the industrial revolution, how many years it took to come to India.
Yeah.
Computer, how many years it took to come to India. And now the new digital revolution, how many minutes it takes to come to India. And it starts from India, right? So I don't think we, other than, sir, with due respect, other than the capital, equity capital, India is adopting technology and knowledge extremely fast. Let me give a specific example from my field, which is lending. When fintechs came, there was a big debate is whether fintech will survive with the banking and the NBFC measures, or whether banks and NBFC measures will survive with the advent of fintech. And what has happened? is a collaboration which nowhere in the world it has been seen
No,
before.
what is actually happening?
is-
I remember that I think it was in this room we were talking about the big threat of payment banks to the likes of State Bank of India, and what's happened
Absolutely.
today? The payment banks are nowhere to be seen.
It's a very, very important point, and we have to understand that what is the product that is being sold, right? And who are we trying to protect? It is not the payment bank which we are trying to protect. That's not important.
Yeah.
Important are the consumers getting payment product cheap, free,
Yeah.
as you are saying, and the speed.
Yeah.
Payments bank didn't survive too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Any knowledge economy, that is going to happen. The rate of decay of organizations is going to be fast. To answer your question specifically, and I will again give an example, is if we believe that knowledge is going to kill old economy, we have a big problem. Knowledge is going to perhaps make the old economy survive. Lending, as we know, will survive
Yeah.
if lending embraces knowledge.
Yeah.
Lending with collateral, lending with analysis
Yeah.
is soon dead. Lending with analytics is the new way to go.
Yeah.
So I basically, I don't know whether this is the answer you are looking for. I don't see a problem, a crisis, or even these two economies opposing each other.
Yes, you believe that a much more collaborative path
Absolutely,
forward has to
absolutely.
be
It is
forged.
to be seen that who benefits. And
Yeah.
finally, if we are convinced that the consumer benefits,
Yeah.
which of the provider survives? It's survival of the fittest. That is the capitalist economy. The consumer will always benefit.
You know,
and that is the point.
It's important that you raise this issue that at the end of the day, it's a free market. Let the market decide who should survive and who eventually fails. And I think this is posing a regulatory challenge, not just in India, but globally as well, but more so today in India as a lot of these sunrise sectors start to emerge and grow. So let me, Vivek, ask you this. You know, Mr. Pai talked about the fact that there's going to be disruptive capital, and disruptive capital is changing the rules of the game, and it has. Whether we talk about retail with the advent of e-commerce, or you even talk about payments, you talk about mobility, but there is a line between disruptive capital and what people would see is predatory capital. And should there then be regulation to ensure that disruptive capital doesn't operate as predatory capital?
So, firstly, I disagree with foreign capital versus Indian capital. I think one of the things we do need in the country to fuel innovation is capital.
Yeah.
And I think we're short of it. So,
Yeah,
irrespective
is
of...
the color of money such an issue? I mean, Mr. Pai keeps talking about India becoming a digital colony, the Chinese are investing, the Americans are investing, Indians are not investing enough. Does the color of money in a global economy, in a global market matter that much?
in my opinion, no. I think where we are today in our evolution, I think that all that capital is welcome. I think it does give us the opportunity to create wealth so that, as we move forward in the economy, we are able to invest our own capital into innovation. And I think one of the other changes which has come about in the industry, and Mr. Pai talked about the IT services industry, we didn't have a mature market in India for innovation or services or capabilities. So as the industry evolved for 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
We were focused on servicing customers globally. But now, as the earning levels have gone up, the economy has evolved, where we are now is we have a domestic market, and our ability to innovate in in this environment has just increased. That combined with capital, I think the Indian services companies or other industries have created capital. It gives us the ability to go out and deploy capital globally.
Yeah.
While at the same time, whatever is coming in, it does help us create a wider base and widen it.
Yeah.
And clearly, I think risk capital is very different than credit capital.
Absolutely. But should there be regulation? Because that, as I said, is something that the government is currently debating on. Should there be a separate regulator for e-commerce, for instance? I mean, that's a point of debate. And as I pointed out, I mean, Mr. Rajneesh Kumar is answerable not just to the government, but also to shareholders. SoftBank, not so much. Sequoia, not so much. Axel, not so much. And those are the guys who are putting money into the startups, who are being able to offer prices that he he can't, or a traditional business can't. So should there be regulation to ensure that it's not just a free market, but it's a fair market?
So I think there are two things. I mean, people are pushing capital into the country with a very different time horizon. I don't think that they are not responsible to their investors for returns. So the measurement is probably on a time horizon and on what you measure it. So it is. I don't think it is. They're saying I'm willing to lose money.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they have to deliver a return to their investors. And I think there's a difference between regulation and protection. I think protection, where I think there's unfair practice is needed, but I think when you, and it's a thin line.
Yeah.
It's a thin dividing line. I mean, when you cross over, it starts getting into regulation and prevention of realizing an opportunity. And it's a tough balance between regulation versus protection. But protection is definitely necessary, whether you talk about capital rules, you talk about data privacy, all those issues which come out with the knowledge economy, all those are extremely important. But it's about maintaining the balance.
Absolutely. Mahendra, let me ask you, because part of this building out of the knowledge economy piece that we're talking about is also, we spoke so much, and Mr. Pai gave us all kinds of statistics on the demographic advantage that India will continue to enjoy. But the fact of the matter is, and I go back to the World Economic Forum's jobs data report of 2018, and half of India's working population, according to that report, if my memory serves me right, will not be equipped to deal with the jobs of the future. And that is going to be critical as a challenge for us to be able to contend with if we want to reap the benefits of all of this data. I mean, data at the end of the day has to be of some use. And do we have the skill sets? Do we have an education system that is being able to incorporate the changes that this new market will need?
Thanks. Let me just offer a different perspective, and I'll get to the question as I'm giving you that example. I think Mr. Pai's presentation did a great job of talking about data, algorithms, compute power, capital.
Yeah.
I think there is in my mind, one missing piece of that jigsaw, which is a learning culture. Whether you're talking about a country, you're talking about an organization, a company, or a vegetable vendor.
Yeah.
If you have a learning culture at the heart of how you operate a business, that's where you will translate whatever data you're accumulating into insights, into knowledge, and that's what will drive the transformation. I'll pick one example where, and we typically when we start thinking about knowledge economies, we start thinking about job families like ML scientists and artificial intelligence experts. I'll give you guys an example where very recently we do pay on delivery orders. And a lot of times pay on delivery orders are done in cash. And we used to wonder that we have this whole team of delivery associates who carry MPOS devices. Why are customers not using them? And we did customer surveys, and we had experts with MBAs and PhDs trying to figure this out, until we went and talked to our delivery associates who are like 12th grade graduates. And they said, sir, वो 2 दिन पहले जाके cash लेके आते, एक बार cash लेके आए तो they don't want to swipe the card. That was such a beautiful insight. Now that is knowledge. That is powerful knowledge which unlocked us. We just started sending a notification 2 days in advance saying, hey, you don't need to go to the ATM, you can just swipe the card at your doorstep. Suddenly the adoption of that service shot up. So it is important to create a learning culture by not just hiring the right job families, but you will have listening posts all across your organization that can help you figure out what are the right insights to convert your company from being a pure service-oriented company into a knowledge-oriented company. And so there are multiple such paradigms, if you will, right? That I feel like if you think about those, and then as you think about that into a national context, about how do you create that culture, we might find different opportunities across the whole ecosystem, whether in education, whether in industry, where you can create that learning culture at the very beginning. So that's kind of how I would think about it.
Okay, Dilip, let me come to you now, because this is the big area of opportunity, and this is where we're seeing some crazy numbers, as Mr. Pai pointed out in his presentation, in the digital payment side with UPI, etc. How do you see the future, and what is it that you would like to see? When we talk about the regulatory side, the regulatory framework, you talk about an innovation sandbox to encourage people to go out there and continue to try and build on that, and eventually create world-class Indian companies, world-sized Indian companies.
So first of all, I would like to tell Mahindra use UPI for your cash on delivery. Yeah, yeah. I think we are well positioned now as far as the payment system is concerned. We have, unlike China, we have most of the payment systems which are interoperable. What it means is it gives equal opportunity to every player to perform.
Yeah.
The second is, they created NPCI, right? So a not-for-profit banks like SBI and all the leading banks contributed to NPCI without expecting any returns, right? So which is now kind of paying off to the banks that, the railroads.
A startup that they helped
the
set
startup
up,
they
yes.
nurture. So I don't agree that the banks do not promote startups. They promoted, one is sitting here, right? And successful. The other thing which I would like to talk about is, the journey is going to be harder going forward, right? And simply because of the literacy issues. The first 200 million, 300 million has been fairly easy to deal with, right? The next 300 million, 400 million are going to be real tough, right? Because these guys have literacy issues, these guys have awareness issues. Smartphone penetration is increasing thanks to Jio, but I think there are going to be issues to deal with that. That's issue number one. Issue number two is we need capital and we need profitability of the businesses.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to go back and create that acceptance ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
We are right now, we have been talking only from the consumer side.
Absolutely.
Who's going to service the 40, 50 million merchants which are there in the country?
Yeah.
Unless the user behavior, I'm saying that unless the supply side is sorted out, demand won't pick up. If you look at the China does about 400, 500 million transactions a day on digital payments. You see QR code everywhere. They are making a law right now that retailer can't refuse the cash. So they're in that situation right now. So I'm saying that we need more capital into the payment system. We need a profitable business so that the banks are able to invest, fintechs are able to invest. And I think the efforts are required from all the bodies to come together to look at the consumer literacy issues, right? And once it is done, I think we should see a good future.
Mr. Pai, you brought up many examples there in the presentation that you laid out for us. But I want to pick up on the point that Dilip just made on profitability. And very often when the joke is that it's easy to become a unicorn, it's very hard to stay one. And for people who are sitting in this room, because your passionate pitch to the audience here was to go out there and invest in these startups. You brought up Uber, for instance. They've just IPO'd. You know what the IPO performance has been like. Let's start talking about sustainability. Let's start talking about also what needs to go into creating a culture where startups are built to last.
Well, I think what is built to last and how long itself is a debate in this era of innovation. The key thing for investors is when do you come in, when do you go out? That's always been the key. You can't wait for 20 years to go out. You come in and go out when you've made your money, and hopefully some insurance company will hold it for the next 30 years to match the liability. You've got to find them. That's what the West does. But the key here is, when you look at these companies, what are they doing? They're taking 20 years growth in 5 years. So you see those losses. Then they will stabilize. For example, when Uber becomes almost a quasi-monopoly, and they decide that we are going to increase our revenues, increase the profitability, you'll see the cash going to the bottom line. All right? Now, are they coming to the stage? They will come to the stage because the discipline in the public markets, which depends on cash flows, will impact them if Masa has to exit and make the kind of money that he wants. And that is coming shortly. You see that evolution of all these companies, that they dominate, where they will be the only ones standing, they'll eliminate everybody else. Look at Google. Google is a monopoly. Facebook has become a monopoly. Everybody is gone. Money is coming out of their ears.
Yeah, which is why there is now a debate in America
Exactly.
on whether these companies have become too large and whether they should now be split up.
Exactly. Now, this is a winners take all field. Because why? It's a network. Now, you own the network, winners take all. What about the others? Well, in the payment companies, we got 80 payment companies.
Yeah.
Maybe 60 will die.
Yeah.
Okay, because why? They're not viable, they're losing money, they don't have a model. The bigger ones will succeed.
So do you believe that there needs to be intervention? I mean, should the government come in there and think about the fact that I have to worry about the 17 others as well? Because that is the challenge that the government is currently faced with.
Well, I don't think the government has to worry about it right now because Indians have not invested money, people have taken an open risk, and they lose their money is perfectly fine. And it's part of a portfolio. And also in a crowded marketplace where domination comes by the network and scale means most, Many are going to die. They shouldn't have put money, they shouldn't have invested, they come up. So we're going to see this change. But this is creative destruction, Shireen. This is going to happen. But the biggest thing that's happened in India, which has not happened anywhere in the world, is that the basic fundamental building block is the public good. So he owns it. So we eliminated the monopoly. Because if he was owned by a company, that company will dictate to India, dictate to Rajneesh Kumar what he has to do. Now he is a public good, and being a public good, everybody can come and accelerate, and he is not going to dominate anybody, which is a good thing to happen. For example, there's going to be a medical stack. Imagine 200 million Indians' health data on a portal owned by Google. Now that is dangerous. That's exactly the kind of fears, 1984 fear that's going to come. Now the medical stack that's going to be done as a public good will collect this data, give access to many people to come out with cures for diseases, cures for many things to help us live longer. Now India has got the right approach of creating a degree of public good at the base, which will help and open up competition, because you're going to be on top of it. But on the top of it, should everybody be on top and spend money? No, there are going to be many casualties, but you've got to pick and choose. But the ones who succeed will make obscene amounts of money is a portfolio analysis. So the old way of investing is gone. Old way of investing is gone.
Okay, the old way of investing is gone. That's your claim there. But Mr. Kumar, let me ask you this now, sir. And when we talk about the future for a bank like State Bank of India, all of this business of data analytics, the data that you sit on, data as a public good, whatever you're required to do as per the mandate of government regulation. But how do you really see all of this changing the way that State Bank of India will be positioned as a banker over the next 5 to 10 years?
We are becoming a digital bank in a very big way. And even about the payments, whatever data is published about Google's dominance or Paytm's dominance, but still the underlying transactions are all happening with the banks. And we have a 30% market share there.
Yeah.
And that is the model. The platform which we are building on YONO, it will be one of the largest platform where all type of lending products, payments, liability products, and using the data analytics in a big way. In 4 months, we have built a balance sheet of more than $1 million. When you look at from a State Bank's perspective, it is nothing. But otherwise, if you look for a fintech, in 4 months, they can build a 8,000 crore balance sheet, and it is only one product. And look at the power of the platform on YONO, which we are creating for agriculture.
Okay.
The plans are like mind-boggling. I was in Jaipur, and there were 300 farmers whom we gave agri gold loan on YONO platform.
Yeah.
And I remember that what that farmer said in his speech, "Aapne 100 तालों की ताली मेरे को दे दिया." So that is the power. So we have a vision, and if you look at all our promotions and everything.
If this is the vision, if you believe that State Bank of India is going to be a digital bank going forward, then what happens to things like physical branches and so on and so forth?
It will remain.
I mean, the Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant said that the obituary will be written as far as bank branches are concerned in few years. Do you believe that to be true? I mean, now when you talk about bank consolidation,
my take is different.
PSB chiefs say that we are not shutting down any bank branches.
One is even digital is feeling the need for physical. Today, even e-commerce companies, every day we read that they are going to open a store. Are they not doing that? So to believe it is either or, that is not the right interpretation. It is both. And the format for the branches may change, but the 22,500 branch network which I have, it is my biggest strength in promoting the digital. If I did not have those 100,000 people at branches promoting digital, we could have not had the success like we have in promotion of a digital platform. And what also we have to realize, and what Mr. Pai said, 4 Indias. When you have 4 Indias, how can you have one solution which is digital? If you are catering to 4 India, you will have to have 4 different solutions. So immediately we are not going anywhere.
Okay.
Physical will remain. It will promote digital. And the other heartening feature is whatever we are learning in the digital processes about simplification, mobile-based application,
Yeah.
we are in a big way adopting that in our physical. So we are
Okay.
rewriting the whole processes at the branch level.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, I want to make a correction. I said that Amitabh Kant said that branches would shut down. He was talking about actually debit cards and in the context of payments. So he didn't say that. Yeah.
Just
go
want
ahead.
to add to that, I think very important thing is each of those branches productivities will increase based on knowledge, not just digital, just knowledge. So whether 22,000 branches will reduce? No, definitely not, but they can serve a multiple of more consumers. And the need for further financial inclusion as it expands, and knowledge, digital is just one part of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Data analytics is just one part of it, but overall knowledge, as the penetration increases multifold, the increase in physical infrastructure will definitely not be proportional.
Okay.
The productivity of physical infrastructure, and you just take any aspect of a good working company.
Yeah.
You just take the P&L and balance sheet. You can today see where knowledge and digital will touch each line of the P&L and balance sheet. You will see the way organizations are constructed.
Okay.
Like when we adopted data analytics and uniform centralized decision making as a method of lending, with the current organization, it was a spectacular failure.
Okay.
Then you have to say, okay, this is the center, and then I will make the organization around it. It was a equally spectacular success. Customers. Today, a farmer gets a loan at a particular rate with a particular security.
Yeah.
As the data comes together and we can make the loan based on analytics.
Absolutely.
Whether the farmer has a CIBIL record or not,
Yeah.
based on lookalikes as I can lend, I am confident that my credit costs will reduce. The farmer will
Absolutely.
get loan cheaper.
Yeah.
The market will expand. So the networking effect,
Yeah.
we have to look at networking effect ahead, or very removed from what we understand of network. The networking
Yes.
effect is
Yes.
really the multiplier
Multiplier,
effect.
yes,
Is
absolutely.
what we are talking about, and I think India is just at the beginning of this. Right, the biggest advantage we have is the demographic dividend, which, given the right credit or given the right facility in anything,
Yeah.
will expand.
Absolutely. I think, yeah.
I want to make a point to catch on what Mr. Anish Kumar said. Look, if we did not have Aadhaar, did not have the mobile, 350 million people wouldn't have come into the banking net in 3 years.
Yeah.
At what cost? Peanuts.
Yeah.
He got 350 million customers.
Yeah.
Now they're going to grow. You ask him, 400 million. You ask him in 10 years how big they'll be. Now please remember the point he again said. There are 4 Indias. You
Yeah.
can't have the same product
Sure.
for each India.
Sure.
You concentrate on the top 300, build the knowledge economy, they will create enough value for the others.
Yeah.
You take the bottom 10% like Jandan, because one man had this vision of Jandan, which he didn't have, one man had, he gave Damki and got it done for whatever reason. But today, that is changing the lives. So segment the population, create products for each segment,
Yeah.
have a different delivery mechanism, and technology will enable you to access each segment
Yeah.
and make money of the segment
Yeah.
at a cost which they can afford and scale up over the next 20 years. Because of Jandan, for
Sure.
the next 20, 30 years, growth is assured for the banks. Think about it. See, we should not have one India. There is no one India.
No, I completely agree
America
with
is
you.
300
I
million
completely
people.
agree with you that there is no one India, and
America
one
is 300
solution
million
doesn't,
people.
one size fits all solutions don't work in a country like India. Yes, Mr. Chatterjee, closing comments from you. Go ahead.
So I want to share with you a different point of view. I think incrementally we'll do well. I think government's policies on many of these things are very, very progressive, particularly all these stacks, India stack,
Yeah.
digital stack. But underlying all of this is silicon, okay? And in silicon, India's position is 0.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think China just got a Sputnik moment. If you remember, because of the Sputnik, America put huge amounts of money to go to the space.
That's right.
And the first man on the moon. China got the Sputnik moment and now devoting and realize that their strength on silicon
Yeah.
is not as strong. NVIDIA, AMD have been stopped from selling there. I believe there is going to be one scenario we got to look at it is there going to be either a bipolar world, China's technology stack is theirs,
Yeah.
is not going to have the access to the
Yeah.
US. We are still using, very reliant on US technologies,
Yeah.
from Google to Facebook to everything. Now, I give you a simple example. Today, it takes picojoules per flop in order to, the best performance on silicon. Now, autonomous cars will need attajoules per flop,
Yeah.
which is all new materials. If we don't get onto
Yeah.
our own independent way of getting different silicon architecture, this, at least the digital knowledge economy, will be at risk.
Okay, no, fair point that you make there, and I think this debate is currently underway on whether the world is going to be split into two internets, so to speak, and that is something that possibility is certainly at
because we
the
are
heart of the
1.5
battle
billion
between the
people.
US and China at this point in time as well. Dilip Asbe, closing
No,
comments from you.
I only make
Yeah.
the point,
Yeah.
because we are 1.5 billion people
yes.
relying on it, we want to be rising superpower.
Sure.
We got to have our own.
Yes, we
We got
do.
to have our own Sputnik moment.
Okay, what will it take to have our own Sputnik moment? Dilip Asbe, the three or four things.
See,
yeah.
while we continue to, and I fully agree with you, we keep hearing that China is building their own chips, and 10 years down the line, they'll run the AI programs on their own hardware. While we look at India, and while we started using clouds, open source, and those kind of technologies, I think there are still basic building blocks which are missing, which is the privacy law, right?
Yeah.
Consumer protection.
Yeah.
So I think while we continue to work on these aspects, I think those are the things that are very much required to be done as quickly as possible. While we look at it now, China right now is building a AI ethics
Yes,
law, right?
yes.
So I'm just saying that,
Yes.
while they are the next step, at least we should start and complete the privacy
Absolutely.
law, and I think that will create a basic building.
No, you're absolutely right. I'll give you the final comments, sir.
I want to take him on.
No, I'll come back. I'll come back to you. You said the media is, no longer in control. Nobody can control you, Mr. Pai. I'll come back to you at the end. Mahendra, let me get closing comments from you on, what will it take for India to have its Sputnik moment?
I think continued investments in all these areas simultaneously. I think the convergence of all these trends is what will create that hockey stick. I think whether it is capital, whether it is technology, whether it is various different underlying resources, as Mr. Chatterjee pointed out, and a deeper learning culture that starts with our institutions, organizations, and percolates deep. So I think all of that coming together is what I think will drive that innovation.
Vivek?
I think one of the biggest things for us to be successful will be reliability. I think as a country, we do a lot of things, a lot of good initiatives, but it's about sustainability, reliability, and quality.
Absolutely.
And I think if we do want to accelerate, we have to stop looking back and saying, will this work, will this not work? We have to have a confidence that it will move forward.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. We have to build a culture of excellence and innovation. Mr. Pai, you started it. I'm going to let you close it as well.
Shireen, Bangalore has 250,000 chip designers and testers, the largest collection of chip designers in the world. 264 design companies, all the American companies are there.
Yeah.
In Bangalore, a startup has made a new architecture for a chip, which is 5 times faster than the GPU of NVIDIA. 5 times.
Are you invested?
Yes, 5 times faster using agent architecture. Now, what India needs, because it lacks capital, is a collaboration with a country which is friendly like Japan. Japan has $14 trillion. They have the manufacturing capacity. They have the capital. India needs to collaborate. So Abe-san and Modi-san have to talk and say, we will come together the software.
Not
and
Uncle
you
Trump.
come.
Not Uncle Trump.
Not Uncle Trump. And Japan will come. Because the reason is very clear. For China, which is the hegemon in Asia, Japan is under threat, we are under threat. America has got its own ecosystem, they will win. Europe is a legacy. Now, for us to survive and grow in Asia, we need another country which has got capital, the manufacturing progress, and the desire to stay relevant and win. Because we don't have capital. Now, we need to build those collaboration engines. The innovation is there. The last point. We went to the US, to NVIDIA, to Facebook, to Google, to IBM, Watson, and other companies to check out the state of AI. Facebook, the state of AI. 35% of all people working in their companies with AI are Indians.
Yeah.
Now, they may not come back here,
Yeah.
but we have access to them.
Yeah.
And some of them are coming here to mentor startup because, they're fed up.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to learn as a country, how do we collaborate,
Yes.
build natural alliances, and that is the key to work in this area.
Okay, all right. Collaboration, cooperation is going to be the key for India to stay relevant in the knowledge economy. And I think we'll have to think about our regulation as well on how we want to actually be more open if collaboration and cooperation is the way forward. But at the end of the day, I think we really have to focus on building a culture, as each of our panelists has pointed out, of learning. We have to build a culture of excellence. I think for too long, we haven't been able to create world-size or world-class companies and world-class brands. I think the need of the hour is to focus on IP, is to focus on innovation and ensure that we actually get that done. Knowledge is not just about digitization, it's about all of those other things that we've had this conversation about. Thank you very much for joining me here on this panel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here this evening. Thank you. Okay, we'll do a quick, short Q&A. Anyone here in the audience with questions, you could, we'll try and get a microphone across to you. If you could raise your hands, we'll try and get a microphone across to you. Anybody here with a question? Yes? No? Can't say? Well, I think the panel has done its job. We have a converted house here. Everybody believes that India is well on its way to becoming a knowledge economy. There are no questions coming in. Thank you very much once again for joining us.
Panelist Shireen, thank you very much. With that, let me request Mr. Rajneesh Kumar to please present a memento to all our panelists here this evening. So this is a very interesting memento that's being given out. It's a Varli painting, and it's practiced by the tribal areas in Maharashtra, so very topical and relevant. So thank you very much for doing an excellent job. And yeah. So a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. That was very engaging panel, and thank you very much to everybody for being here this evening. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much, panelists. So with that, we come to the end of day one. I hope it's given you just a glimmer of what's to follow on day two. So please do join us for cocktails and dinner, and we hope to see you again bright and early tomorrow morning. Good evening.